Clock's ticking. Not long now before I start the journey down through France, through the Alps, down to Monaco, hopefully to see the Grand Prix set up, not the actual race, and then right across the Mediterranean, back up into the Pyrenees. 3-4 weeks, it's going to be fantastic. It's just about just under 4 weeks to go now until the start of the journey. So quick update, everything's sort of more or less ready. I am putting the bike in for service before we go. It seems a bit logical and a bit more sensible, I suppose, really. All the paperwork has all been done. I think I've got everything that I need. As a booze-free biker, of course, alcohol levels won't be a concern to me abroad, but in case you are not aware, the alcohol levels in the likes of France, and in fact most of Europe, are lower than they are over here. And in fact, I was at one point going to the Czech Republic. I'm not doing that trip now, unfortunately, but they have zero tolerance there, so any alcohol in your system now is deemed to be against the law. So that's something to be aware of if you're heading out that direction. It's a bit weird, really, because where I'm going into France, I mean, the French have always been known to have their wine morning, noon and night, really, and yet their drive levels, I say, are lower than ours, milligrams that is. So do take extra care if you happen to be out. They are a bit tight on some of the rules and regulations, the French. Speeding is another one. And I think if you've got English plates on, maybe they'll take more advantage of that. I really don't know. I think, it's general that if you're breaking the law, you're going to get done. And I suppose really, for me personally, I don't need to break the speed limit because I'm actually going for quite a long time. I'm going for nearly 4 weeks, so I can bimble. Any fast or, distance I want to travel, get the miles under my belt sort of thing, will be done on an autoroute. And a couple of little things to say about autoroutes. Fantastic roads to use, very, very cheap for motorcycles. So don't be put off by travelling miles on autoroutes. They are extremely good. There's very little traffic on them. The only thing to bear in mind, of course, is if you have a breakdown on the autoroute, that your breakdown cover will not cover you on the autoroute. You'll need to be towed off the autoroute or get off the autoroute before your breakdown cover or breakdown company can come and sort you out. So that's something to bear in mind if you're on autoroutes. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is now that we're in a contactless society with payments. Contactless payments are available on 99% of autoroutes, motorways in Europe. And the only downside, I suppose, for bikers is that when you come up to the péage booth or toll boat booth, you've obviously got to take a ticket. So bearing in mind, you've got to put that ticket somewhere, stick it between your teeth and stick it in your jacket pocket or whatever. The complicated bit or the harder bit, I suppose, is when you come to the other end or the next péage where you have to insert your ticket, and that will give you the payment amount, which, as I say, can be done by a contactless card. If you haven't got facilities on your bike other than your pockets, it can be a little bit difficult to get your card out, present it to the actual contactless little disc, and then put it back in your pocket while you're being hassled by some French car behind you or some other motorist behind you. Shouldn't blame the French. And there's a great tendency that, with your gloves on, which of course are mandatory to wear your gloves, you can drop the card. So a little tip I've discovered and I'm using this year is I've got those little armbands that you see on doormen at securities when they're outside pubs and clubs, and they have their card in it to identify who they are, their sort of license number. I've got one of those which I'm putting my card in, my contactless card, which will be on my wrist. So all I've got to do really is present my wrist to the actual payment disc, and hopefully that will suffice, which means then I won't have to be fiddling around for my card in my pocket. And I just think that's quite a useful tip to have. Just a short bit of video this time. As I say, paperwork you've got to take with you. take originals of everything and have some backup copies, photocopies that you can put somewhere else in case, unfortunately, you get robbed. Yeah, unfortunately, it does happen. So better to be ready for that than don't thinking about it and it happens. So having duplicates of all your paperwork is an advantage. But the authorities will want to see the originals should you be stopped at any point or time. Things like high visibility vest are mandatory if you break down on some roads, particularly motorways, auto routes, that sort of thing. And so have it to hand, have it somewhere in the pannier or on your person or in your bag where you can get to it immediately. Or if you're really concerned that your bike is going to give you some issues, then possibly stick that jacket on before you enter onto the auto route. Going into towns, a lot of towns now are doing like they are doing in the UK, and they've got emission zones, and there are little tickets or little stamps that you can get, which comes in the form of a disc, which you display on your motorcycle, which will allow you to take your motorcycle into these towns and cities where these restrictions apply. Don't go into them if you haven't got one, because they are on-spot fines. Many of the fines that you will find in Europe are on-spot fines, unlike the UK. They are pay up as you are presented with the fine, and they do take credit cards or debit cards. So that's something to bear in mind. So again, if you're going to be thinking of going into some of the bigger towns, cities, make sure that you've got this little sticker on your bike somewhere. If you haven't got a windscreen, I have no idea where you put it. But it comes with a bit of paperwork, so if you do get stopped, you can say, well, here it is. Breathalyzers are no longer a legal requirement in France. As I just mentioned, gloves are. Helmets with high visibility or reflective stickers on there are a legal requirement, although looking at all the research I've done on it, very few people are getting stopped as a result of not having them, or getting fined for not having them, and that includes French people. Although I assume that if you were to be stopped on another matter, they may go through everything and see if you've got them. So if you don't want to stick them on your beautiful helmet, which you've just paid a fortune for, then I suggest possibly buying a packet of them, keeping them with you, and if you get quizzed, then you might have to stick them on. But as I say, that's entirely up to you. Other legal requirements are, well, there's lists on the internet, and I advise you to go looking on there, really, depending on the country that you're going to be visiting, because they do vary. Warning triangles, by the way, not to be carried by motorcyclists, so don't worry about that. A good supply of liquids for you personally to carry, very useful, particularly if you're using auto routes, because these bed reposes and what have you are little distances apart. So, and some of them are just rest areas with nothing at all. Some have cafes, fuel, but some have just the rest area with no facilities. Although, again, my experiences in France and Spain is they do have things like water fountains, so you probably can get a drink. But it's well worth carrying water with you anyway. Currency-wise, yeah, take some currency, some change. Everybody takes cards. Preload your card. Just watch out for cards for your bank charging you a fortune on top of the actual withdrawal fee. And in fact, it's much better to pay with your card than to draw cash, because you will quite likely experience a percentage on top of the withdrawal fee at the ATM. So that's, again, something to check before you go. Some cards are free to use abroad, so it's worth thinking about that. One other tip, just while I think about it, short video as I say, is going through France and Spain. I did discover that if you went into a supermarket to buy fuel, and it was a pay at the pump or pay at the booth without a person present, just be warned, because they can take a large slice of money off you that day, €100 or so, to cover the cost of the fuel, even if you've only had 40 or €30 of fuel. And it can take a couple of 3 days or more for you to get that money put back into your account. So my advice would be that if there's nobody present at the fuel station, I wouldn't use it. I would not use it. I want to go somewhere where I pay for what I've used, not pay up front for something that I haven't used. So that's something to bear in mind. Anyway, we'll come back, I'll come back with some more stuff, hopefully just a couple of days before I go. And my intention is then to give you some footage of boarding the ferry, having the bike tied down, just in case you've never been on, to show you how that all happens, the marshalling on the ferry. Facilities currently on the ferry. I'm going Plymouth Roscoff, so it's, I think, about an 8-hour crossing. I do have a cabin. My intention was initially not to have a cabin and to go on an earlier ferry, but that meant getting accommodation when I got on the other side. So I've gone with the ferry and a cabin, and then I shall have a full day's travel, which is taking me right down to the Loire Valley. So more footage nearer the time. Yeah, just thought I'd add a little bit about the ferry, because I'm going to tell you more about the ferry and obviously give you some details in a video about tying the bike down and all the rest of it, and what happens when you get to the ferry. Just one thing also to add, that since we've left Europe, as it would be, although not completely, however, there are, of course, a lot more restrictions as to what you can take out of the UK into Europe, the amount of time you can stay in Europe, and obviously stuff that you can bring back from Europe into the UK. So that's something just to be warned about. And I would advise that you go and check on the relevant websites, both the government one and possibly your ferry company, to see what their restrictions are. And regarding ferries, and I don't know whether this is the same on the Channel Tunnel, but certainly on the ferries now, it doesn't appear to be that there are customs as you board the ferry, but there is security. And the security is now randomly pulling vehicles, including motorcycles, for on-spot checks as to what you're carrying. And one of the things that was seemed to be hot on their list of topics was the carrying of knives. Now, we all carry knives, and if you're going abroad for any length of time, and you're going to be eating a baguette on the side of the road, or you're going to have a sandwich in your bedroom at night, or a piece of cheese or whatever else, the likelihood is you will take a knife. They will ask you if you are carrying a knife, and if you say yes, they may well take it off you. So it's entirely up to you as to whether you say yes or no. My advice would be probably not to carry a knife. Yeah, you're going to need one when you get to the other side, but go into a supermarket and buy one. Because a lot of the knives that the French particularly use are like the locking knives, which they all cut a slice off their baguette and their bit of cheese and the rest of it. Those are readily available in all the supermarkets and shops, but they are illegal to carry across the channel. So just be warned for stuff like that. And as I say, when you come back, if you are lucky enough to have panniers and lots of luggage space, be warned that a lot of the items that we used to bring back, and that includes dairy produce and meat and all sorts of stuff you might want to bring back, you may not be able to. So just check that before you leave to make sure that you are within the law. This is a little bit, I thought I'd just add that, and obviously there'll be a bit more on that when I actually come to cross the channel and I do a video on that nearer the time. So that's it for this video. It did go on a bit longer than what I thought. Please subscribe to this channel of mine, and hit the little bell thing so you can get notifications, because I do intend videoing practically all of the journey that I'm going to be doing over the 3-4 weeks, with hints, tips, places to go, places I've stayed, little anomalies that I come across, hopefully some interesting footage from Monaco and the setting up of the Grand Prix, which should be of interest to everybody. But routes through the Alps, snow conditions, the time of year that I'm traveling, and obviously then going through the Pyrenees, revisiting old haunts. So there's going to be lots of stuff to see, lots of stuff, hopefully be interested to everybody, no matter what sort of bike you're riding, or even if you're traveling in a car. So do subscribe to my channel and get the numbers up on that one. And as I say, hit the notifications, and then you won't miss a single video. So that's it, everything from today. And the next video is going to be start of the journey. Will actually be as we get to the ferry terminal and then start boarding. I'll catch you then. Stay safe. Until then.